the Coalition's demand commander, Elena. Vasquez was reviewing supply reports in her office aboard Lunar Station Alpha when the emergency klaxon began wailing throughout the facility. The piercing sound cut through the quiet hum of the stations, life support systems, and sent ice through her veins. In her 15 years of service, Elena had heard that alarm only during training exercises. Today was not a drill. Elena rushed to the command center where her communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, was frantically working at her console. The main display screen showed incoming transmission data with priority codes that Elena had never seen before. The encryption patterns were unfamiliar and far more complex than any human communication system. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission on the Universal Diplomatic Channel," Sarah reported, her voice tight with tension. "The signal is using protocols that were established for first contact scenarios, but the source is unknown." Elena felt her heart rate increase as she processed the implications. Humanity had been expanding across nearby star systems for decades, but had never encountered intelligent alien life. The existence of communication protocols for such contact had always seemed like wishful thinking by optimistic scientists and politicians. "Put it through to the main screen and record everything," Elena ordered as she activated the station's emergency protocols. Throughout Lunar Station Alpha, blast doors sealed automatically while defensive systems powered up for the first time. In years, the main display flickered and then resolved into an image that made Elena step backward in shock. The being on the screen was tall and imposing, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under bright lighting. 4 arms extended from its torso, while its head bore features that were almost human but disturbingly alien. Large black eyes stared directly at Elena through the transmission. "I am Supreme Overlord Kithara of the Xanthari Empire, speaking for the Galactic Unity Coalition," the alien announced in perfect English. Its voice carried an otherworldly quality that made Elena's skin crawl. "Your species has been observed and evaluated by our governing council." Elena remained silent, as she had been trained for diplomatic situations, though every instinct told her to run from what she was seeing. The alien continued speaking with calm authority that suggested it was accustomed to absolute obedience. "Humanity has expanded beyond acceptable boundaries without permission from the Coalition. Your aggressive colonization of 17 star systems has disrupted established trade routes and violated territorial agreements that have maintained peace for centuries." Lieutenant Kim was recording every word while simultaneously sending emergency alerts to Earth Defense Command. Elena watched the alien's 4 arms gesture in complex patterns that seemed to emphasize its words. "The Coalition has voted unanimously. Regarding your species' future, you have 48 hours to comply with our requirements. First, all human military vessels will be surrendered to Coalition forces. Second, all colonial governments will submit to direct Coalition oversight. Third, your homeworld will accept protectorate status under Xanthari administration." The alien leaned closer to its recording device, and Elena could see rows of sharp teeth behind its almost human lips. "Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of all human settlements and the elimination of your species from this galaxy. This communication ends now." The screen went dark, leaving Elena staring at her own reflection in the black surface. The command center was silent, except for the steady beeping of automated systems processing the recorded transmission. Sarah was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, what do we do now?" Elena activated her emergency communication system and began composing a priority message to Earth. While she typed, her mind raced through the implications of what they had just witnessed. Humanity was facing a threat that made their worst nightmares seem trivial by comparison. Within 6 hours, Elena found herself aboard a military transport heading toward Earth at maximum speed. Admiral Marcus Chun had personally ordered her immediate Return for emergency briefings at Defense Command Headquarters. During the journey, Elena studied intelligence reports about recent deep space observations that suddenly made terrifying sense. Automated monitoring stations had detected large numbers of unknown vessels gathering at the edge of human space. Military analysts had assumed these were natural phenomena or instrument malfunctions. The truth was far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. Defense Command Headquarters was located deep beneath the Australian continent in a facility that could survive direct nuclear attack. Elena had never been to the installation before and was impressed by its scope and sophistication. Hundreds of officers worked at computer stations, while massive displays showed the tactical situation. Across human space, Admiral Chun was waiting for Elena in the main briefing room, along with the senior leadership of Earth's military forces. The Admiral was a man in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles against pirates and rebels in the outer colonies. His weathered face showed the strain of recent events. "Commander Vasquez, thank you for coming so quickly," Admiral Chun said as Elena took her seat at the briefing table. "I assume you've read the intelligence reports during your journey here." Elena nodded and activated her tablet to display the data she had studied. "Sir, long-range sensors have detected over 5,000 vessels massing at the edge of our territory. If those ships belong to this coalition, we're facing impossible odds." General Patricia Hayes spoke up from her position across the table. She commanded Earth's planetary defense systems and looked grim as she reviewed tactical assessments. "Our current military consists of 400 ships, including frigates, cruisers, and carriers. Intelligence analysis suggests coalition vessels are significantly larger and more advanced than our technology." Colonel Robert Jong nodded in agreement from his seat at the table. Ground-based defensive platforms around Earth and the major colonies could delay an invasion, but not stop it. "We're looking at a technological gap of perhaps centuries." Admiral Chun stood up and walked to the large tactical display dominating one wall of the briefing room. Red markers indicated the positions of human military assets, while a growing number of yellow contacts represented the approaching alien fleet. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing the extinction of our species," Admiral Chun said quietly. "Every analysis indicates that conventional resistance would only delay the inevitable. However, there is something I must tell you about capabilities that have remained classified since the Colonial Rebellion." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as the Admiral activated a secure terminal and entered a long series of access codes. The main display changed to show a single line of text that made everyone in the room lean forward. "Project Nemesis. Authorization level Omega required." Colonel Zhang looked confused as he stared at the display. "Admiral, I've never heard of any Project Nemesis. What are you talking about?" Admiral Chun turned to face the assembled officers with an expression Elena had never seen before. Fear mixed with something that might have been hope created lines around his eyes that aged him years and seconds. During the darkest period of the Colonial Rebellion, when Earth was losing the war against the outer settlements, our predecessors authorized research into technologies that crossed ethical boundaries. Project Nemesis was the result of that research. Dr. Jennifer Walsh spoke up from her position at the science station. She was Earth's leading expert on military technology and had top-secret clearance for most defense projects. "Admiral, I've reviewed every classified military program from that period. There's no record of anything called Project Nemesis, because it was hidden even from our own military leadership," Admiral Chun replied. "Only 3 people knew the full scope of the project, and I'm the last one alive. The research was conducted at a facility that doesn't appear on any official charts." Elena felt her pulse quicken as she realized they were about to learn secrets that had been buried for decades. Admiral Chun activated another series of commands, and the display showed star charts with a location marked in red. A facility is located on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. It was built inside a natural cavern system and has been operating autonomously for over 50 years. The project created something that our ancestors hoped would never be needed. General Hayes leaned forward with intense curiosity. What kind of something, Admiral? A warship that learns and adapts during combat. A vessel that becomes more dangerous the longer it fights. The scientists involved called it the UES Prometheus, and its artificial intelligence system was designated Atlas. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena tried to imagine technology that could adapt and learn like a living creature while possessing the destructive power of a military vessel. Dr. Walsh shook her head in disbelief. Admiral, that's impossible with our current understanding of computer science and engineering. Adaptive artificial intelligence of that complexity would require processing power that doesn't exist. The scientists used technologies that we abandoned after the war ended, Admiral Chun replied grimly. Biological integration with computer systems. Neural network interfaces that blur the line between machine and living organism. The Prometheus was never just a ship. Elena felt sick as she understood what Admiral Chun was describing. You're talking about a hybrid of technology and biology, something that's partially alive. The project files describe it as an evolutionary weapon system. It was designed to face threats that conventional military force could not overcome. The Coalition ultimatum has triggered automated protocols that have been dormant for decades. Admiral Chun activated the facility's communication systems and established contact with the hidden installation on Titan. The response came immediately, suggesting that systems had been monitoring Earth's communications network for years. Defense Command. This is Facility Omega, responding to emergency activation codes. Project Nemesis is online and awaiting command authorization. Estimated time to full operational status is 12 hours. Elena stared at the speaker as an artificial voice delivered words that could determine humanity's survival. Somewhere in the darkness of space near Saturn, something was awakening that had been built to win wars that could not be won by civilized means. We need a captain, Admiral Chun said as he looked around the table at the assembled officers. Someone who can interface with the Atlas system and command the Prometheus in combat. The psychological profile requirements are very specific. Colonel Zhang raised his hand tentatively. What kind of requirements, sir? Someone who can make impossible decisions without hesitation. Someone who can embrace what the ship was designed to do without losing their humanity in the process. Admiral Chun walked over to Elena and placed a hand on her shoulder. Commander Vasquez, your service record indicates exceptional performance under pressure. Your psychological evaluations suggest the mental flexibility required for neural interface with adaptive systems. Elena felt the weight of humanity's future settling on her shoulders as she realized what Admiral Chun was asking. Sir, are you requesting that I take command of this vessel? I'm asking you to save our species, Elena. The Prometheus needs a captain who can work with its AI systems to do what must be done. Are you willing to accept this responsibility? Elena looked around the briefing room at the faces of humanity's military leadership. She saw fear mixed with desperate hope as they waited for her answer. The alien ultimatum had left them with no good choices, but the Prometheus represented a chance to fight back against impossible odds. Yes, sir, I accept the assignment, Elena said quietly. When do we leave for Titan? Humanity's answer captain Elena Vasquez stood in the shuttle bay aboard the transport vessel UES Mercury as it approached Saturn's largest moon. Through the viewport, she could see Titan's orange atmosphere, hiding the secrets that lay beneath its frozen surface. Admiral Chun had insisted on personally overseeing the activation of Project Nemesis, and Elena was grateful for his presence during what might be humanity's final gamble. Dr. Walsh worked at a portable computer terminal reviewing technical specifications. That still seemed impossible, despite their source from official military files. Captain, the biological integration process will permanently alter your neural pathways. Once you interface with the Atlas system, there's no way to reverse the changes. Elena studied the medical reports while trying to maintain her composure. The procedure would involve direct connection between her brain and the ship's artificial intelligence through microscopic implants that would grow throughout her nervous system. She would become something between human and machine. Doctor, will I still be able to think like a human after the integration? According to the research data, you'll retain your personality and memories, but your cognitive abilities will be enhanced by the ship's processing power. You'll be able to control the Prometheus with thought alone, but the AI will also influence your decision-making process. The shuttle landed on Titan's surface near coordinates that appeared to show only natural rock formations. However, as they approached the landing site in environmental suits, Elena could see that the rocky outcroppings were actually camouflaged structures. Hidden doors opened in the artificial mountainside to reveal an airlock large enough for their entire party. Admiral Chun led them through corridors that stretched deep into the moon's interior. Emergency lighting activated automatically as their presence was detected by sensors that had been waiting decades for human contact. The walls were made of a dark composite material that Elena didn't recognize, and strange symbols were carved into the surface, along with warning signs in multiple languages. They descended through multiple levels of the facility until reaching a massive underground cavern that took Elena's breath away. The space was enormous and artificial, stretching for kilometers in every direction. In the center sat something that challenged everything Elena knew about spacecraft design: the UES. Prometheus was over 3 kilometers long, and its hull appeared to shift and flow like liquid metal. Organic-looking tubes pulsed along its surface, while weapon ports opened and closed in patterns that resembled breathing. The ship's dark exterior seemed to absorb light, making it appear as a living shadow against the cavern walls. "Dear God, what is that thing?" Dr. Walsh whispered as she stared at the vessel through her helmet visor. Elena activated her suit's recording systems to document what she was seeing. The Prometheus defied every principle of human engineering she had studied during her career. Its design suggested technologies that merged biology with mechanics in ways that should not be possible. Admiral Chun approached a control console near the ship's berth and entered authorization codes that had been memorized for 50 years. The cavern's lighting system activated fully, revealing the complete scope of the vessel. Elena could see that the ship's hull was covered in what looked like scales that moved independently of each other. The Prometheus has been in hibernation mode since the end of the Colonial Rebellion. Admiral Chun explained over their suit communication systems. Its biological components require activation before the ship can operate at full capacity. A boarding ramp extended from the vessel's underside and touched the cavern floor. Lights came on along the ramp's surface as the ship's systems detected their presence. Elena felt her heart racing as she realized they were about to enter something that was as much creature as machine. The interior corridors were warm, despite the moon's frozen surface above them. The walls had a texture that reminded Elena of skin, and soft bioluminescent lighting pulsed along the ceiling in patterns that looked like blood flowing through veins. The air had a metallic smell, mixed with something organic that made her uncomfortable. They made their way to the ship's bridge, which was located at the vessel's center and dominated by a single command chair, surrounded by interfaces that seemed to grow from the floor. As Admiral Chun approached the captain's station, the ship's AI system activated for the first time in decades. Atlas Artificial Intelligence Online. Emergency protocols activated. Scanning for authorized command personnel. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, filling the bridge with sound that seemed to originate inside Elena's head. Elena felt a strange, tingling sensation as invisible scanners examined her. The ship's sensors were unlike anything inhuman technology, and she could sense them probing her mind as well as her body. Asterisk. Captain Vasquez, your psychological profile matches requirements for neural interface with Atlas systems. Do you consent to biological integration for command interface? Elena looked at the command chair and saw that cables were emerging from its surface. The organic-looking tubes moved like serpents as they waited for her to sit down. She thought about the alien ultimatum and the 5,000 enemy ships approaching Earth. I consent to the integration, Elena said as she approached the chair. The moment she sat down, the biological cables attached themselves to her arms and neck. Pain shot through her nervous system as microscopic machines invaded her bloodstream and began connecting to her brain. Elena thought she was going to die as agony overwhelmed her senses. Then the pain faded, and she felt the Prometheus flowing through her consciousness. She was no longer just Captain Elena Vasquez. She was the UE's Prometheus, and the ship was her. Through the vessel's sensors, she could perceive every system coming online as the hibernation cycle ended. The ship's hunger for battle became part of her own thoughts, and Elena understood why Project Nemesis had been hidden away for so long. The Prometheus was not just a weapon, but a predator that had been sleeping and waiting for prey worthy of its attention. Elena felt the ship's systems analyzing the tactical situation as data flowed directly into her enhanced mind. The Coalition fleet consisted of 5,000 vessels from 12 different alien species. Their technology was advanced but followed predictable design patterns that Atlas began cataloging immediately. Through the ship's sensors, Elena could detect the approaching alien armada as it moved through the outer solar system. The enemy had destroyed the defensive platforms around Neptune and was advancing toward Jupiter. Human casualties were already mounting as outposts and mining stations were eliminated with casual efficiency. Captain, how do you feel? Admiral, Sean asked as he watched Elena's integration with the ship's systems. Elena turned to look at him, and Sean stepped backward when he saw her eyes. They were still human, but now held flecks of silver that reflected the bridge lighting in unnatural ways. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. I feel the ship's power flowing through every part of my being. The Prometheus is ready for combat, and it's hungry for enemies that can provide a real challenge. Elena stood up from the command chair and walked to the main display screen. Atlas is analyzing Coalition fleet compositions and adapting our weapon systems to exploit their technological weaknesses. Dr. Walsh monitored Elena's vital signs through sensors built into her environmental suit. Captain, your brainwave patterns have changed significantly. The integration is altering your neural chemistry in ways we don't fully understand. The changes are necessary for optimal performance. Elena replied as she felt the ship's engines powering up for the first time in decades. The Prometheus was designed to face impossible odds by becoming something that conventional enemies cannot understand or defeat. The ship began rising from its underground berth as massive doors opened in the cavern ceiling. Elena could feel every system responding to her thoughts as the vessel emerged into open space. The Prometheus moved through vacuum like a living creature, its hull rippling and adapting to the space environment. Elena set course for Jupiter, where the Coalition fleet was gathering for its final assault on Earth. The Prometheus accelerated through space at velocities that should have been impossible, bending physics around itself as it traveled through dimensions that normal ships could not access. Through the ship's sensors, Elena detected the massive alien armada spread across Jupiter's orbital space. Thousands of vessels from different species had formed battle groups that stretched across millions of kilometers. The sight would have been beautiful if it hadn't represented humanity's extinction. Fleet Marshal Drexen stood on the bridge of his flagship, monitoring the final preparations for the assault on Earth. The Chronari commander was confident that the primitive human species would surrender once they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Most civilizations chose survival over futile resistance when faced with such technological superiority. "Marshal, we're detecting an anomaly approaching our position," his sensor officer reported from across the bridge. "A single vessel of unknown configuration is approaching at impossible velocity." Drexen looked at his tactical displays with confusion. "Impossible velocity? Check your instruments for malfunction." "All systems are functioning normally, sir." "The vessel appears to be human in origin, but is using propulsion technology that exceeds our understanding of physics." Elena felt the Coalition fleet's fear as the Prometheus materialized among their formations like a nightmare given physical form. The ship's hull continued shifting and flowing as its biological systems adapted to combat conditions. Weapon ports opened along its surface while targeting systems locked onto enemy vessels. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the U.E.'s Prometheus." Alina broadcast on all Coalition communication frequencies. "You demanded humanity's surrender. Instead, you've awakened something that should have remained sleeping." The Prometheus opened fire for the first time in 50 years, and Elena felt the ship's joy as its weapon systems engaged worthy opponents. The energy beams that emerged were unlike anything in human military history, tearing through Coalition shields and armor as if they were made of paper. Elena watched through the ship's sensors as a dozen alien vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Prometheus absorbed energy from the explosions and used it to enhance its own capabilities, growing stronger with each enemy it destroyed. Fleet Marshal Drexen ordered his entire fleet to concentrate fire on the single human vessel. Thousands of plasma beams and energy torpedoes converged on the Prometheus from every direction, creating a light show that could be seen from Earth's surface. When the barrage ended, the Prometheus was not only undamaged, but had somehow grown larger. Its hull had absorbed the enemy attacks and converted them into raw material for expansion. Elena felt the ship's pleasure as it evolved during combat, becoming more dangerous with each passing moment. Biological tendrils extended from the Prometheus toward nearby Coalition vessels. When they made contact with alien ships, Elena felt the vessel systems being rewritten by a TLAS. The ship was not just destroying enemies, but converting them to serve humanity's purposes. Within an hour, over 100 Coalition vessels had been turned against their former allies. Elena watched as converted ships opened fire on the remaining alien fleet while the Prometheus continued its systematic dismantling of the Coalition armada. Fleet Marshal Drexen realized that his forces were facing something beyond their understanding. The human ship was not just defeating them, but transforming the very nature of the battle. His advanced technology was useless against an opponent that learned and adapted faster than they could respond. "All ships retreat immediately," Drexen ordered as he watched another battle group fall under the Prometheus's influence. "Return to Coalition space and inform the High Council that humanity possesses capabilities we cannot counter." Elena felt satisfaction as the surviving Coalition vessels fled toward the edge of the solar system. The Prometheus had turned a force of 5,000 enemy ships into a rout using tactics that no conventional military could understand. As the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Elena realized that humanity's position in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer a primitive species waiting for extinction, but a power that commanded respect through strength that transcended normal understanding. The Prometheus began its journey back toward Earth, carrying news of victory that would echo across the galaxy. Elena felt the ship's contentment as it settled into a dormant state, waiting for the next challenge worthy of its attention. Humanity had answered the Coalition's ultimatum in a way that would be remembered for generations. They had not surrendered or begged for mercy, but instead unleashed something that proved the universe still held surprises for those who thought they understood the limits of power. Asterisk.